I think with this album we just wanted to make sure that sonically, and particularly with the bass and the drums and the guitars to some degree, that you get the sense of it being a band in a room, a place and a time, which the Second Law didn't really have that, but I think this album needed to have that. But and so sometimes you just get the feeling you just want to rock, you just want to rock out again and get back to just doing some heavier stuff and some more intense stuff. And from past experience, I think that's the kind of stuff that generally goes down well live as well. So I think we wanted to make an album that the transition from being in the studio to playing live will be easier. Well, I think with the electronic thing, I think it was something that probably crept in around the time of the second album. Songs like Bliss and Space Dementia and various others. I think over the course of the next 10 years, it was something that I guess grew within the band and became quite an important part of the sound of the band. And then obviously we arrive at the Second Law, and I think the electronic influence is probably at its strongest. And I guess we could have either stayed there or tried to take it further. But I think had we taken the electronic influence further, I think it would have taken away from the fact that we're a three-piece band, And the one thing that is consistent throughout the albums is that it's a three-piece band, just with all these additional elements. So I think for us it felt like the logical step was to maybe strip away those elements and return more to being a three-piece. And I think we wanted the focal point of this album to be about the three-piece band, the guitar, bass and drums. I feel like we've made a good album, and I think you always obviously attempt to do that. You always want to make an album that feels like you've moved on from your last album and you've made something better. And you can only really hope that the fans like it. You don't ever take it for granted. We like it. We think it's great. I think there's elements of this album that fans will find familiar. But yeah, that side of it is a little bit out of your control. You can't just assume that people will like it. But hopefully they will. I think with this album, the difference between this album and say the Second Law or Black Holes and Revelation, it kind of tells a story. None of the other albums really did that. The Second Law had a theme. I don't know whether you could call it a concept album, but yeah, I think this probably is a concept album. I think we had a very definite idea of what we wanted it to be. And we didn't really stray away from that. We stayed in that concept and made sure that it worked from start to finish. I think that's something that Matt obviously writes the lyrics and stuff, so it's something that he's obviously been thinking about for a while. But when I look at the concept of drones, I feel like that there are certain elements of previous songs that we've done that feel like the prequel to this album. I think if you go back and listen to some of the stuff on Black Holes, even if you go back as far as listening to songs like Plug-in Baby and Citizen Erased, it almost feels like it's all kind of leading towards this concept of drones, and this is where it's all kind of come together, So I don't know if it's something that's recent. I think it's probably something that has been building up for a large number of years, when you listen to the album, you essentially hear a three-piece band. There's not a ton of overdubs, there's not a ton of additional stuff on top. So I think the musical side will be easier than the Second Law. But I think from a visual point of view, I think what is going to be great about this album is that the possibilities that we have for visuals and flying things, and we talked about it a lot. And even with the album artwork, there's a lot of really good images that we have that sort of directly relate to the concept of the album. And these are images that I think we'll be able to use and turn into movie clips and use them live, in order to reinforce what the album's about. But and I think with this album more than any other as well, I think there's the whole concept of maybe playing the album from start to finish in certain gigs. I think that if that will work with any album, it'll be this one. And we have done that with a couple of the albums before, but it's not something we've done lots of. But I think we'll probably look at that as well, and maybe think about doing that at certain gigs. As playing the album as a whole piece.